At 75 years old, I'm a widow living alone in my paid-off home in suburban Chicago. My neighbor Vanessa befriended me after my husband died, offering to help with errands and household tasks. I trusted her completely. Over 8 months, Vanessa systematically stole jewelry worth $260,000 from my home, sold it to pawn shops across 3 states, and convinced my family I was developing dementia so they wouldn't believe me when I reported the thefts. She thought a lonely elderly widow would be an easy target who couldn't prove anything. She was wrong. I'm a retired insurance fraud investigator who spent 38 years tracking down thieves and building prosecutable cases. This is the story of how I caught her on camera and sent her to prison. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you never miss revenge stories like this. My name is Helen Catherine Morrison, and I'm 75 years old. I live in Naperville, Illinois, in the home my late husband Thomas and I purchased in 1985, 40 years ago. Thomas died 2 years ago at 77 from cancer. We'd been married for 52 years. After his death, I was lonely and grieving. Our children lived out of state, my daughter Rachel in California, and my son Michael in New York. They called regularly but could only visit a few times a year. Before I retired at 70, I spent 38 years as an insurance fraud investigator. I worked for major insurance companies investigating suspicious claims, tracking down fraudsters, gathering evidence, and building cases for prosecution. I was good at my job. Very good. Thomas had been a successful commercial real estate developer. We'd lived comfortably and accumulated significant assets, including a valuable jewelry collection that Thomas had given me over 50 years of marriage. The collection was worth approximately $260,000 and included antique pieces, diamond jewelry, and estate items. 6 months after Thomas died, a woman named Vanessa Cole moved into the house next door. She was 42, recently divorced, and worked as a dental hygienist. She seemed friendly and kind. Vanessa started coming over with cookies, offering to help with yard work, asking if I needed anything from the grocery store. After months of isolation and grief, I appreciated the company. "Helen, you shouldn't be doing all this alone," Vanessa would say. "Let me help you." That's what neighbors are for. I gave Vanessa a spare key to my house for emergencies. That decision would nearly destroy me. It started small. I noticed a bracelet missing from my jewelry box, a gold bracelet Thomas had given me for our 20th anniversary. I thought I'd misplaced it. Then a pearl necklace disappeared. Then a pair of diamond earrings. Then an antique brooch. Over 3 months, 10 pieces of jewelry vanished from my home. I reported the thefts to police, but without evidence of forced entry, they suggested I might have misplaced the items. My children became concerned. "Mom, maybe you're getting forgetful." Should we talk about memory care options? That's when I realized what was happening. Vanessa had been in my house regularly, had access to my spare key, and knew where I kept my jewelry. She was stealing from me, and she'd convinced my family I was developing dementia so they wouldn't believe my theft reports. But Vanessa made one critical mistake. She underestimated me. I wasn't a confused elderly woman losing her memory. I was a retired insurance fraud investigator with nearly 4 decades of experience catching thieves. I decided to set a trap. I couldn't go to my family or the police yet. They thought I was imagining the thefts. I needed concrete evidence, and I knew exactly how to get it. First, I installed hidden security cameras throughout my house. Small wireless cameras in my bedroom, living room, and near my jewelry box. They recorded continuously to cloud storage that Vanessa couldn't access or erase. Second, I created a detailed inventory of my remaining jewelry with photographs, descriptions, and appraisals. I documented exactly what I still owned. Third, I continued acting friendly toward Vanessa while secretly watching her every move. I didn't have to wait long. 2 weeks after installing the cameras, I reviewed the footage. There it was. Clear video of Vanessa entering my house with her spare key while I was at a doctor's appointment. She went straight to my bedroom, opened my jewelry box, and removed 3 pieces. a diamond ring, a sapphire necklace, and an antique gold bracelet. The video showed her face clearly. It showed her using her key. It showed the exact items she took. It was perfect evidence, but I didn't confront her or call police immediately. I wanted to catch her selling the jewelry so I could prove the full extent of her theft and track down all my stolen items. I hired a private investigator, a former colleague from my insurance investigation days, to follow Vanessa and document where she sold the jewelry. Over the next month, the private investigator tracked Vanessa to 7 different pawn shops across Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin. She was deliberately spreading the sales across multiple states to avoid detection. At each pawn shop, she sold my jewelry using fake identification with different names. My private investigator obtained copies of pawn shop transaction records, security camera footage from the shops showing Vanessa making the sales, and documentation of the items sold. We tracked down 18 pieces of my stolen jewelry worth over $260,000. With video evidence of the thefts and documentation of the sales, I contacted the Naperville Police Department. This time, I didn't come as a confused elderly woman reporting missing items. I came as a professional investigator presenting a complete case. I'm Helen Morrison, retired insurance fraud investigator. My neighbour has been systematically stealing jewelry from my home for 8 months. I have video evidence of the thefts, documentation of sales at pawn shops across 3 states, and a complete inventory of stolen items totaling $160,000. Here's my evidence file. The detective assigned to the case was impressed. Mrs. Morrison, this is the most thorough victim-collected evidence I've ever seen. You've done our job for us. I spent 38 years doing this professionally. I know what you need for prosecution. The police obtained warrants for Vanessa's arrest based on my evidence. They also obtained warrants to search her house and financial records. What they found was stunning. Vanessa had stolen from at least 4 other elderly neighbours in previous locations before moving to Naperville. She had a pattern of befriending elderly widows, gaining their trust, stealing their valuables, and moving to a new area before getting caught. Police found records showing Vanessa had stolen over $500,000 worth of jewelry, coins, and valuables from elderly victims over 6 years. She was a professional theft predator targeting vulnerable seniors. Vanessa was arrested at her home. Police found several pieces of my jewelry she hadn't sold yet, along with items belonging to her other victims. She was charged with multiple counts of residential burglary theft over $300,000, including other victims, elder abuse fraud, using fake IDs at pawn shops, interstate transportation of stolen property, federal charge. Vanessa's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal. Your Honour, my client has no prior convictions. She's willing to make restitution. The prosecutor refused. The defendant is a serial predator who specifically targets elderly widows. She cultivates relationships with vulnerable seniors, gains their trust, and systematically robs them. She's done this to at least 5 victims across multiple states. The state seeks the maximum sentence. At trial, I testified as the primary victim. I presented my evidence, the hidden camera footage showing Vanessa stealing my jewelry, the private investigator's documentation of sales at pawn shops, the complete inventory of stolen items. Ms. Morrison, the prosecutor asked, how did you gather all this evidence? I'm a retired insurance fraud investigator with 38 years of experience. When I realized Vanessa was stealing from me and had convinced my family I was developing dementia, I knew I needed irrefutable proof. I installed hidden cameras, documented everything, and hired a private investigator to track where she sold my jewelry. I built this case the same way I built hundreds of fraud cases during my career. The defense attorney tried to discredit me. Mrs. Morrison, isn't it possible you simply misplaced these items and are mistaken about the theft? No. I have video footage of the defendant entering my home with a key I gave her, going directly to my jewelry box and removing specific items. I have footage from pawn shops showing her selling those same items using fake identification. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is documented theft. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. They found Vanessa guilty on all counts. Vanessa was sentenced to 12 years in state prison for the theft and elder abuse charges. She also received a consecutive 5-year federal sentence for interstate transportation of stolen property. Total sentence, 17 years in prison. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, over $530,000. Ms. Cole, the judge said at sentencing, "You are a predator who deliberately targets vulnerable elderly people. You cultivate trust and friendship for the sole purpose of robbing seniors who are grieving and isolated. This is among the most despicable crimes I've encountered. You will serve every day of this sentence." Beyond the criminal conviction, I filed a civil lawsuit against Vanessa seeking additional damages for emotional distress, invasion of privacy, and breach of trust. The civil court awarded me an additional $150,000 in punitive damages. With the help of police and pawnshop records, I recovered 14 of my 18 stolen pieces of jewelry. 4 pieces had been sold to private buyers and couldn't be recovered, but insurance covered those losses. Vanessa is now 3 years into her 17-year sentence. She'll be released when she's 59 years old, with a felony record and no assets. My children were shocked when they learned the truth. "Mum, we're so sorry we didn't believe you." "We should have known you weren't confused." "It's okay." Vanessa was convincing. That's how she got away with this for so long. But she made a mistake targeting someone with my background. I've reconnected with my children more regularly. They understand now that I'm sharp, capable, and completely competent. The experience actually strengthened our relationship because they saw me in action using my professional skills. I've also changed the locks on my house. I no longer give spare keys to anyone except family. Most importantly, I've become an advocate for protecting elderly people from predatory theft. I give presentations at senior centers across Illinois about how to recognize and prevent exploitation. Predators like Vanessa target elderly people because they think we're vulnerable, I tell audiences. They cultivate trust, isolate us from family, and steal systematically. But vulnerability doesn't mean helpless. I'm 75 years old, and I spent 38 years catching thieves professionally. Vanessa learned that expertise doesn't retire. I'm 75 years old now, still living independently in my home in Naperville. I'm healthy, active, and more cautious about whom I trust. The experience with Vanessa taught me important lessons about security, trust, and the value of professional expertise. It also reminded me that age doesn't diminish capability. It enhances it with decades of experience. People sometimes ask if I feel guilty about sending Vanessa to prison for 17 years. The answer is no. Vanessa deliberately targeted elderly widows, cultivated trust through fake friendship, and stole systematically from vulnerable people. She didn't steal from me because she was desperate. She stole because she saw an elderly widow as an easy target. She was wrong. I wasn't an easy target. I was a retired insurance fraud investigator who knew exactly how to catch a thief, document the evidence, and build a prosecutable case. Vanessa thought my age and widowhood made me vulnerable. She forgot that I spent nearly 4 decades building careers prosecuting people exactly like her. I'm 75 years old. I'm a retired insurance fraud investigator. I'm a widow who lost the love of her life. And I'm a woman who used professional expertise to destroy someone who preyed on elderly people. Age brings experience, and experience is power.